Hey guys, welcome to Get Busy Watching. I'm your host, Honest Dan. Let's talk movies. This will be a quick intro. I knew next to nothing about this before going in. All I knew was that it was a Studio Ghibli film, at least mostly. It's their first foray into 3D animation, and it's based on a book of the same name. So, with that out of the way, this is my honest opinion of EARWIG and the Witch. Based on the book of the same name, EARWIG, voiced by Taylor Henderson, is a girl who was placed in an orphanage by her mother when she was an infant. Now a young girl, EARWIG has spent most of her life happily believing that she would never be adopted until she's proven wrong when she's adopted by a witch named Bella Yaga, voiced by Vanessa Marshall, and the Mandrake, voiced by Richard E. Grant. When she realizes that she's in this house full of magic, she agrees to be an extra pair of hands to work for Bella, so long as she teaches her magic. However, the longer that EARWIG lives in the house, the more she begins to realize that Bella may not keep her promise.
Erica, you haven't ever wanted a family of your own or to live somewhere other than here, have you? Nope.
2021 is going to be an awful year. Since when does Studio Ghibli make bad movies? I thought they were renowned as one of the top tier animation studios in the world. What the hell are they doing making something this terrible? The very opening of this movie put me in a sour mood because I cannot believe that a mother would so readily give up her infant child without shedding a single solitary tear. No dramatic weight or anything. But if that was the only problem I had with this movie, it'd be downright great. It's not. Almost immediately after, we're introduced to the following: pointless plot points, inconsistent world building, and terrible characters, all in the span of 1 minute. Pointless plot point. EARWIG's mom leaves a note that she's got the other 12 witches behind her, and that's why she never returns for her daughter. We never learn anything about these 12 witches, or why it would take years to shake them off. They get one final throwaway reference toward the end of the film, and that's it. Nothing else. The very reason that EARWIG is an orphan, and this has absolutely zero impact on the overall story. Inconsistent world building. The orphanage aide talks about witches like she really believes that they're real.
If it's true that this child's mother has associated with 12 witches, then it follows she must also be a witch.
Okay, cool, rolling with it, but then we get this.
Nonsense. There are simply no such thing as witches.
What the fuck? Your girl over here seems to really buy into the idea that witches are real, but you're saying that it's rubbish. Off to a great start. As for terrible characters, the head of the orphanage doesn't like the name EARWIG, so she just simply changes it to Erica Wig.
Name like EARWIG will not do. Welcome our newest. Her name is Erica Wig.
Hey, you know what? I'm not a fan of the name EARWIG either. I'm sure in the United States that would actually be considered child abuse. But far worse names have been given to kids. It's just downright disrespectful to not keep the name that the parent had intended for their child. From this point on, we follow EARWIG, who has become quite the obnoxious character. Prankster kids don't necessarily bother me, but when they start making declarations that the orphanage and all of its employees do as she says, and tells her best friend that he'll never get adopted?
Don't worry, there's no chance anyone will choose you either. But a lot of people who visit it do like me. Sometimes they even almost choose me.
That little bitch could have fallen right off that roof and I wouldn't have shed a tear. To make matters worse, look how her face is animated.
Whenever you want to, I'm sure of it.
Look, make no mistake, if Sergeant Stubby has taught me anything, subpar animation that isn't as good as Disney, Pixar, or even DreamWorks and Illumination isn't indicative of the film's quality. Sergeant Stubby is a legitimately good film, and I would honestly rather watch that over a lot of modern Disney films. Though considering how corporate and soul-crushing they've become over the last half-decade, that's not a high bar to vault over. The point is, I've seen animated films that didn't look like it had a huge budget, but had a good story to make up for it. Because this doesn't have a good story, the subpar animation becomes all the more noticeable. On a technical level, when Earwig has a normal expression, she's fine, but as soon as she shows annoyance, it's awkward as hell. It's like the animators were aiming for that 2D style of expressive features and bring that into the 3D plane. The problem is, it really doesn't work. Her eyebrows arch way too prominently, and her eyes get too small. It's borderline nightmare fuel. And the fact that literally no other character expresses like Earwig does, it never comes across as natural, even in this world. This is a recurring problem I never got used to. The rest of the story is literally just watching Earwig get bossed around like a slave and Bella being a bitch, constantly threatening her with worms. What kind of worms? Good question. Earthworms, tapeworms, intestinal worms? It's never made clear. It's just, you get worms.
If you slack off, it's worms for you.
Frankly, very little even happens in the movie. We learn that Thomas the House Cat, voiced by Dan Stevens, can talk, but only to Earwig.
Hang on, you actually talk?
Of course I do, just not very often.
They sneak into Bella's workshop to concoct a potion of their own that should protect them from any spell that Bella will throw at them, but they don't test it to make sure that it works until much later. There seems to be a subplot brewing when Earwig is shown developing a closer relationship to the Mandrake, who seems to be the one guy around here that you're supposed to appease to, only to be more critical of Bella when she doesn't teach Earwig how to cook or do various things around the house. There's no real sense of whether or not he's the true villain of the story or if he's just a hero waiting to happen. It's established that he's not supposed to be disturbed because, who knows, and when he is, all that happens is that he looks angry. That's it. No consequences. Oh, and the mixtape that Earwig carries around? Yeah. It's revealed that her mom was in a band called Earwig, and both Bella and the Mandrake were in that band. If you think I just gave away the big twist of the movie, don't worry, I didn't. This information is farted at us pretty early on in a cutaway sequence, and it's not even clear if this is a weird flashback from Earwig's point of view, or if it's just a clumsy sequence added for the audience's sake. And the final act of this stinker? Oh dear sweet Jesus, is it rushed. All of a sudden, Earwig and Bella are friends for no reason. And the final shot of the movie is during Christmas. Her best friend is finally paying her a visit, and guess who shows up?
Custard, you...
Merry Christmas, Earwig.
Yup. Mommy Dearest decided to go adopt a kid instead of reuniting with the one that she personally squeezed out of her cooch. I hate this movie. By the way, the credits roll right there and then. Did I mention I hate this movie? Overall, I will concede that I got maybe 1 or 2 laughs out of this flick. And I do enjoy Earwig's pincer hairstyle. In a better movie, it could have been downright iconic. However, here's the problem. Earwig is not a likable character. The story makes 0 sense, nothing happens, it's boring, Earwig's expressions are haunting, and this is a movie made by Studio Ghibli. Fucking legends in the animation world. And to make matters infinitely worse, it's an adoption story. As an adopted kid myself, these are the stories that speak to me the most. So you, for my taste, have to get these stories right. Because if you don't, you run the risk of insulting me in a way that even racial slurs would never measure up to. This movie insulted me. It's one thing for a good studio to make a bad movie. That has happened before. It's another thing when you make a bad adoption story. Sadly, that has happened too. But this level of insult takes it to a whole nother level when it's Studio Ghibli making a bad adoption story. This is unforgivable. My honest rating for Earwig and the Witch, a 1 out of 5. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Stay safe and healthy out there. Please wear a mask if you go out. Hope to see you soon.